Welcome back. And if you're a returning person, welcome to the channel for the first time. We're not going to discuss what just was said. We're going to get on to this video, which is the hunt for Genghis Khan's tomb, or Genghis. I've heard both. We're hunting for GK's tomb, and that's the way it is. So there you go. And
I'll tell you more about...
Nope. I'm not done talking, Simon Whistler. That's all I had. Yep, we're done talking. Video.
them in just a bit. We love to glorify ancient conquerors. Countless history books are filled with
We're also not discussing the cheap beer. It gets me to point A to point buzzed.
quests and deeds of men like Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. Modern-day Western society is built on the values that these leaders and their armies spread. Stories, songs, and monuments commemorate their legends thousands of years after they lived. However, there was a man far more prolific, and if measured by the same standards used to proclaim the greatness of Alexander and Caesar, lands conquered and people ruled, much more successful than any of these vaulted men in Greco-Roman history. A man who ruled over history's largest land empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. The man who subjugated over 30 countries as defined by modern borders and killed so many people that he dropped the carbon levels in the atmosphere, and is said to have fathered so many children during his lifetime that his DNA is present in tens of millions of descendants today. The man is Genghis Khan. He is history's greatest conqueror, but also its greatest mystery. Not much is known about his life, and even less about his death. The man who...
This is what we know about his life. He conquered and killed. Goddamn Thanos.
Ruled over much of the Eurasian landmass is now lost to time. No one even knows where his grave is. Many explorers, historians, and treasure hunters have searched high and low for the great Khan's grave, but none have ended their quest successfully. But that won't stop us from going on our own quest, even if it's only from the comfort of our couches and desk chairs. Today we're going to look at the hunt for Genghis Khan's tomb.
I got a feeling I know where it is. It's nothing I like to discuss.
Estrogen is killing men. Estrogen is the primary female hormone.
Why didn't I
by the brain into production?
Son of a... Why didn't I mute that? I haven't discussed it openly, but I think it's in Montana. It's a theory I'm putting together with scientists. This guy has a lot of channels.
Though not much is known about his life, Genghis Khan's legacy is full of the legends and stories that naturally accompany such an influential figure. These legends and stories mirror their subject's life. They are full of competing facts and warring narratives. The uncertainty starts right from his birth. Different sources place the Khan's birth at either 1155, 1162, or 1167. What is known is that he started life with the name Temujin. Stories of his early years are those of being shunned by his tribe, oppressed at the hands of his enemies, and barely scraping by in abject poverty. But there are also legends of Temujin's fierce passion and influence over people from a young age, stories of cunning and leadership that helped him out of these tough spots. He escaped captivity.
So I'm going to go on a limb here and act like that this will not be discussed, but Temujin. Why did he change his name, or will that be discussed? I mean, Genghis Khan kind of does roll off the tongue a little better than Temujin. But then again, I don't know. If we didn't know Genghis Khan and we just knew him as Temujin, he would still be an ass kicker.
At the hands of an enemy tribe by convincing one of his guards to help him when his family's horses were stolen. He persuaded a young herder to abandon his animals and family and not only help him retrieve his stolen horses, but attach himself to the future Khan forever in service. So today's video is brought to you by Athletic Greens, and I'm excited to share with you how I have been taking care of myself with Athletic Greens, and it's been going on for a while now. Look, it can be a struggle to find the time and honestly the motivation to take care of our .com/megaprojects. And now back to today's video. When Temujin set out to get his stolen wife back from a tribe that had sworn a grudge against Temujin and his deceased father, Temujin won the help of the most powerful Mongol prince, leader of the Keri tribe, and gained a 20,000-man army to confront his wife's captors. Temujin's power only grew from there. His personality drew many loyal followers to his side.
Holy shit, that just dawned on me what that was. That is a giant statue of him. Wow. Must be, I'm going to say that's kind of like a museum. Wow. Wow. That's pretty cool looking. Wonder what all these are out here.
His genius political strategy and battle tactics subdued the rest of his opponents. Before long, Temujin had only his one-time close friend Jamuka standing in the way of becoming the universal ruler of all Mongol peoples. At the suggestion of his wife, Temujin split ways with Jamuka. This is the moment in history when legends claim that heaven and earth deemed Temujin to become the ruler of the Mongols. In a saga of political intrigue, tribal steppe warfare, and imperial ambitions that makes Game of Thrones look like a children's book, Temujin eventually bested his friend, subjugated the remaining steppe tribes, and outmaneuvered the Jin Emperor in China to finally be named Genghis Khan in 1206 AD. For the next 20 years, Genghis Khan would oversee the expansive conquests of his army. His empire would spell the end of the Jin dynasty in China, despite many attempts by the Chinese to pay off the Mongol conqueror with tempting fortunes. His army would wipe the Khwarezmian Muslim Empire from...
What do you think goes through... I apologize. What do you think goes through the mind of someone? Put yourself in a position where you're fighting someone. You don't think you can win. Or at best, it's going to be a draw, but it's going to be a long, drawn-out battle. And so you try to bribe them, I guess is a way of putting it. You know, you look at, yeah, it's a bribe, but you're looking at it like this is going to save my people. You're not going to have to deal with a famine. You know, you're just eliminating war, which is always good. What do you think goes through your mind in that moment when you offer something? Maybe it's a great offer and it is rejected, and the only thing that will be accepted is to conquer your people. And you don't think you can win. You know, it's going to be a siege. They've got you surrounded. Sieges never, I shouldn't say never, but they don't seem to work well for one side or the other. Sorry, I gotta hit a button real fast. They don't seem to work well for one side that is, you know, it depends on how long your opponent wants to lay siege to your whatever, your city, your town, village, fort. It doesn't seem to work out for the people inside. Not always, but just what goes through your head when you know they're not accepting anything. It's gotta be just crushing. What would you do then? Would you continue to fight? Or would you just immediately white flag it, surrender? Let me say that again. White flag it. Almost close to having people mad at me. Throw up the white flag. How about that? And then just surrender and hope that saves lives of your people. That's a tough situation. I mean, your other option is to fight it out. You lose a lot of people. And then you also run the risk of being executed or whatever. It's a tough situation. It's tough.
the map after it slaughtered a band of Muslim traders traveling under the Khan's protection. By its end, Genghis Khan's explosion across Asia would bring much of China, Russia, and almost anywhere between the Pacific Ocean and the Caspian Sea under Mongol control. By his death in 1227, Genghis Khan had crafted for himself a fearsome, respected, and enigmatic legacy. He was known as a religious man, drawn to worship in times of crisis, but driven by a passion for revenge when crossed. He engaged in some of history's worst massacres, often lining up survivors of conquered towns in front of his caravan and beheading anyone who stood taller than the wheels on his wagons. He sowed terror and discord among his enemies with psychological warfare that stopped soldiers in their tracks before his army's horses. At the same time, he appreciated culture and philosophical discussion so much that the Khan's reputation encouraged Chan Chuan, one of the most well-known Taoist sages of the time, to travel the length of Asia to engage in debates and discussions with him. Genghis Khan ensured that his monumental feats would be only the beginning of the Mongol domination of Asia. Before he died, Genghis Khan chose his son, Ogadai, with great care and thought to be his successor, and ensured Ogadai's brothers would faithfully follow his rule. He left his son a thriving army and an empire ready to continue its conquest of the known world. Genghis Khan turned the step from a land of constantly warring tribes to a unified world power, made the Silk Road what we know it as today, a highway of its time between Asia and Europe that introduced the latter to innovations like gunpowder and printing, and took China from being an advanced state to a world power.
Wow. If anyone has a video they could recommend about him, and I know that there is one, maybe I'll do that one next. There's one on another one of Simon Whistler's channels that he does it, biographics maybe? I don't remember. But I would love to explore him, because like the Alexander the Great series and stuff like that, because I think he's another fascinating person in life. Sorry, it's the beer.
Mongolian culture has taboos around discussing death. This means that the sources where experts get much of their information on the Great Khan discuss little of his demise. Where facts leave empty spaces, legends often tend to fill the void. Stories on the death of Genghis Khan range from those as reasonable as dying from wounds sustained in battle or falling off his horse to the fantastical notion of being killed by a vengeful queen or being struck by lightning. Genghis Khan, a man so powerful only lightning or a woman could stop him. What the sources do tell us is that before his death, Genghis Khan requested that his body be hidden and that no one should ever disturb his remains. That's about where the facts stop and give way to legend again. It's said that after his death, 1,000 soldiers carried the Khan's body back to Mongolia, killing anyone who saw them along the way to keep their roots secret. To bury the body, the soldiers diverted a river, buried the corpse, allowed the river to flow over the burial site once more, and trampled the area with 1,000 horses to cover up any evidence. And just to ensure there was no living tongue that could let slip the whereabouts, the soldiers then committed suicide. Yeah. Other legends claim they buried the body in land frozen by permafrost so that no one could ever dig it up again. Still others attest that the coffin that carried his body was already empty by the time it arrived back in Mongolia. This last legend has gained...
I've never heard about diverting a river, burying the body, mushing it all up, and then letting the river go back over the top. That is interesting. That one is interesting. I'd never heard that one.
Some academic support over the years. According to historians, Genghis Khan died when he was waging war in northeast China, over 300 miles away from his homeland in Mongolia. Since that would have been a long trip back and then an arduous task to keep it a secret from anyone around, some historians claim that Genghis Khan was buried somewhere in northeast China and that the procession that supposedly carried his body back to Mongolia was just a decoy. However, other accounts, based on just as reliable sources and supported by just as many experts, claim that his body is definitely buried somewhere in Mongolia. Perhaps it is by the Altai Mountain, a burial site Marco Polo claimed in his writings was the invariable custom of all the Grand Khans. Or maybe it's by the Anon River, or maybe it's by the sacred mountain of Burk and Khaldan. Not even Genghis Khan's grandson and eventual successor, Kublai Khan, knew where his grandfather's body was buried. Amid the confusion, one thing remains certain to this day. No one has ever found Genghis Khan's tomb. No one knows where it is.
I apologize for all the pauses. I'm drinking, so when I drink, I like to talk. if he didn't want his body to be found, then it's not going to be some grand monument. It might just be his body in the ground. No real coffin, or you know what I mean? Like the coffin that went to Mongolia, like all the grand procession, he probably was just buried in a hole, covered over, boom. And what was that? 3,000 years ago? Was he born in 11? No, not 3,000. I just heard 1,100. Now I don't know if that was AD or BC. Damn. And now I don't know. Hold on. I apologize. Fast forward. I'll hold the phone.
I think a good way to clarify it is not.
I'll hold the phone up. You just fast forward to when the phone goes down. When was Genghis Khan born?
According to UNESCO, a famous Mongolian historian and scientist subsequently fixed the birth date on the 31st of May, 1162, starting from the Mongolian astrological birth date of Genghis Khan.
Okay, but that doesn't tell me if that's AD or BC. Okay, here you go. AD. Okay, so I was thinking BC. So, AD 1100, so that was 900 years ago. I don't know how long it takes for the bones to completely just like disappear. But let me get back to what I was saying. I apologize. He could have been just thrown in a hole, just his body, covered over, and moved on. The group and everything moved on. But then you have to wonder if after this funeral, to save the body, to protect the corpse, and all his people commit suicide, then where the hell would the body, would they have just buried him and then they just commit suicide right then? Let me say that again. Would they just then commit suicide right then? Because if they did, you're going to have a lot of bodies just, people are going to walk through and think there was a massacre. Which then gives you a reason to remove the bodies and not dig, because why would you need to dig unless they recognize the soldiers? So the soldiers might have went some, I apologize. I don't know why this has become an issue for me. I'm just going to unpause the video. We're going to act like that never happened.
The lack of clues and the absence of any success has far from dissuaded searchers in their efforts. The mystery of it has attracted historians, anthropologists, explorers, and treasure hunters alike. Drawn by the wealth of legends, academic value, and treasure that is sure to be buried with him, these tomb hunters search tirelessly to unearth the founder of the modern Mongolian nation. However, since the Mongolian people hold Genghis Khan in such high regard as their founder and forefather, and since his last request was that his remains never be disturbed, many Mongolians oppose the efforts taken by those hunting for his tomb. But the common sentiment of an entire nation does not seem to faze the tomb hunters. Efforts to find Genghis Khan's tomb range from individual quests like those of American amateur archaeologist Maury Kravitz to well-funded, technologically driven
And that was Lenny Kravitz's father, in case anyone didn't know.
expeditions like the National Geographic Valley of the Khans project, which used satellite imagery from space to survey the Mongolian landscape in search of the tomb. Even projects as big as the joint governmental Japanese-Mongolian expedition have cast their net across the Mongolian expanse. That was before it was halted after the peaceful democratic revolution against the communist government in the 90s, however. Such efforts have turned up tantalizing clues. In 2010, a research scientist enlisted the help of over 10,000 volunteers to scan satellite images of over 6,000 square kilometers of land to spot geographical oddities. The crowdsourced effort produced data that was fed into an AI that churned out 55 likely locations for the tomb. All the sites were thoroughly excavated, but Genghis Khan's body still evaded discovery. In 2015, a French expedition used drones to examine a suspicious-looking mound on the sacred mountain Burkhan Khaldun. This project was undertaken without the approval of Mongolian authorities, so the examination was limited. However, the French duo was able to deduce that the mound was man-made and possibly a tomb based on those of Chinese imperial styles. The site has stirred a lot of speculation. It's often at the forefront of any discussion of the tomb's whereabouts. The Secret History of the Mongols, written in 1240, and the oldest surviving written work on the last days of Genghis Khan, claims that he often sought refuge at this mountain, carried out his religious worship there, and declared it the holiest of mountains in Mongolia. Most tantalizing, though, is a passage where the Great Khan is quoted as saying, "Bury me here when I pass away." However, nothing more can be done at Burk and Khaldun until the Mongolian government allow researchers into the protected land. The search.
When I die, I'm saying it now, I'm going to be buried under the Hollywood sign in California. See how easy it is to just say something? Are people going to go and dig under the Hollywood sign for me? Of course they are. Look at me. I'm a legend. Maybe. Probably not. You shouldn't. What are you listening for? But just because he said it, he also said he didn't. You can't say, bury me here. This is where I want to be buried. This is a sacred spot for me. Blah, 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 blah. And also say, don't tell anyone where I'll be buried. You know what I'm saying? I've been talking a lot. Sorry.
To get to the truth remains frustratingly confusing and unsolvable because of a couple of reasons. The landscape of Mongolia provides the first and perhaps the most insurmountable barrier. A country 7 times the size of Great Britain, but with only 4% of its population and 2% of its roads, Mongolia is a dangerous trek at the best of times and simply impenetrable at the worst. Another aspect that makes discovery difficult is the likelihood that the tomb could be as much as 20 meters underground. Excavations of burial sites of tribes similar to the Mongols have exhibited such deep dug practices. These discoveries lead many tomb hunters to assume Genghis Khan's tomb could be as deep, if not deeper. After all, this is the Great Khan we're talking about here. Anything you can dig, Genghis Khan's army can dig deeper. The hunt for Genghis Khan's tomb has proven a stubborn riddle and a one laced with an array of legends and myths. And as is inevitable in any unsuccessful human endeavor, people started looking for a reason for the failure.
The failure is because he doesn't want to be found. I tell you what, I'm really leaning towards the diverting a river, because that gives you so much cover. The only thing is that a river could, over time, dig down lower and lower and lower and lower. I always think of like Grand Canyon, but eventually a river keeps running over something. It doesn't just stay in the same spot. It will eventually push down and down and down as it, erodes the surface. So if it did that, eventually he would be found. But then again, I don't think he was buried in a coffin. I don't think he was given this grand burial. I think he was just put in the ground. So that would have just defeated my own ideas. Yeah, I don't know. Am I crazy? Am I stupid? Am I on the right track? Am I on the wrong track? Have I been drinking too much? I've had 2 beers in this video. I want more.
The legend of the curse of Genghis Khan's tomb boils down to one simple, though outlandish belief. If the Great Khan's tomb was ever to be opened, the world would end. According to Mongolian shamanism, when a person dies, their spirit leaves their body and their bones are invaded by evil forces. Bodies are usually buried right away, since coming into contact with the remains could mean dangerous consequences for the toucher. Believers of this legend of the curse claim real-life historical happenings support it. In 1941, Soviet archaeologists discovered the tomb of Timur, a 14th century king and descendant of Genghis Khan. Ignoring the warnings of disturbing Mongolian remains, they unearthed the tomb and excavated Timur's remains. Not 2 days later, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. This turned out to be one of the bloodiest campaigns in an already brutal war. Soon after, Stalin ordered Timur's remains be reburied and not disturbed again. A different curse has been used by explorers to justify their hunt and the eventual, as they see it, unearthing of Genghis Khan's tomb. Since the Khan of all the Mongols was such a powerful conqueror, ruler of history's largest empire, and undoubtedly incomprehensibly rich, his tomb is destined to be full of unimaginable riches, gold and jewels from his conquests, as well as a wealth of historical and archaeological knowledge. Given the pot of
I
gold at
disagree.
the end of the rainbow waiting for them, searchers claim it's only a matter of time before they find the tomb. And with all of today's technology at their disposal, they say solving this historical mystery is inevitable. However, short of several tantalizing leads, explorers are no closer to finding the tomb than they were when the hunt first started. Genghis Khan became history's greatest conqueror by outsmarting and sowing fear in his enemies. These tactics are still serving him well, long after his death.
What if, now hear me out, what if they cremated him? Hear me out. They cremate him, send him off on some grand thing, whatever the ritual would be, cremate his body, have some giant ceremony, and then just dig and bury his remains, which would just be ash and whatever was left, cover it up. You would never find it. If you really want to make it secret, why wouldn't you just cremate and then just bury the ashes? Or cremate the body and then scatter the ashes. Like maybe they went to Mongolia somewhere, like that place that he wanted to be buried. You take the ashes, you scatter the ashes there, or bury the ashes around. What are we talking? 1100? So we'd be talking 900 years ago? What do you think? Those ashes are sticking around? Do you think you're going to have some kind of sonar that's going to go over and be like, oh yeah, no, there's totally 900-year-old ashes here? Of course not. Why couldn't that be a possibility? Okay. I've had 2 beers. I'm feeling good. I'm lubed up. I'm going to watch the Genghis Khan video now because of this. I got a burp. Apologies. It wasn't a good burp. I muted the mic for you out of respect. I've been talking a lot. It's because I'm drinking. So I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to watch something else with Genghis Khan. I already forgot the name. Temujin? See? I forget shit immediately. Okay. Like and subscribe. Oh my goodness, that burp felt so good. Like and subscribe. Tell me your favorite, personal bra size. It's always great to know. No one's done it yet. So I'm just going to end this video now because that sounds weird. Have a good day. Have a good night.